Look on your social media feeds. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's Krypton's Legacy, a Superman podcast, covering all of Clark Kent's greatest adventures in comics, film, and animation, with your hosts, Adam and Nick.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, Nick. Nick, how's it going?
Adam, I'm doing rather super. Very happy to be here with you, my friend. How are you, sir?
That's very apropos that you're feeling super because we're going to talk about some super stuff. I'm doing really well. I'm actually really excited for today. I'm excited whenever we talk, because it's just fun and we talk about stuff that we love. The viewers and listeners, when they see us together, they typically associate it with either Power Rangers talk or Batman and Batman the Animated Series talk. If you haven't guessed by the hints early on, that's not what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
We're talking about Superman and Supergirl. And what you're hearing now is a relaunch, a rebirth of a show on this network that used to be here. So I'd like to welcome Nick as the co-host and the audience, the viewers and listeners, back, and maybe for the first time, to Krypton's Legacy, a Superman podcast and vidcast. That's what we're doing today. It's very exciting to relaunch this. Look, on my network, with Donnie, with Chris, with Nick, we talk about DC all the time. But I think if there are, a couple of characters worthy of having their own offshoot podcasts, it's Superman and Batman. And so that's why part of the reason I decided to bring this show back into rotation. The format is going to be pretty much the same as all the other shows, and that if there's news, we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to have, in the second half of the show, we're either going to talk animation, film, or comic books. In this episode, the second half of the show will be our review of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, the graphic novel that is inspiring an upcoming film in James Gunn's DC universe. But before that, there's news about another film in James Gunn's DC universe, and that's the one that he's directing, and that is Superman Legacy. Nick, we've been hearing for a couple of months about screen tests, and for Superman and Lois, we've heard names thrown around and all kinds of speculation, Hollywood Reporter articles, Variety articles, Deadline, George Schmo's movies coming up with all kinds of rumors that make no sense, or whatever the hell the website's called. I'm not even going to give them airtime. But we now have, it's official, we have our brand new Superman, Clark Kent, and Lois Lane. The news that we're going to be talking about has been covered by every major reliable trade. So again, this isn't, a Reddit scoop or anything like that. This is as official as can be, to the point where James Gunn flat out came out and said, this is correct. This is official. So that is that playing Clark Kent and Superman is actor David Corenswet, and playing intrepid reporter Lois Lane is Rachel Brosnahan. Corenswet has been in a couple of Netflix shows, The Politician, I believe, and Hollywood, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. I have seen neither of those. So I can't say that, I can't give specifics of, well, in this episode of this show, he showed this particular thing that makes me think that he's perfect for the role. Look, here's the fact of it. This is my perspective, and then we'll get Nick's. Here's the fact of it. Like 6'4", trained at Juilliard, and looks like Superman. Whether the look, and I know I can go to Netflix right now, well, not right now because I'm recording, but after this recording, and can watch one of those two shows. That's very much in my realm of possibility to do. I don't know if I'm going to do that yet because I like the fact that I know nothing about this guy in terms of his acting ability. And part of me just wants to go sit in the theater on July 11th, 2025 and see David Corenswet as Superman. So I don't know if I'm going to watch those two shows that he was in yet. I've seen some YouTube clips, and there's a scene that I've seen that he gives off the Clark Kent vibe. So I don't know if I need to see any more in terms of acting capability. But again, 6'4", and trained at the same prestigious school of acting that Christopher Reeve went to. To me, that's it. That's all I need. There it is. He's got the relatively close colored hair. He's got the chin. I don't know what else I need. Like, short of him posting a video on Twitter and literally without any wires flying upwards. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the only other thing that could convince me even more that I think he's more than capable of doing this and doing it well, very well, in fact. So before we get to Lois, Nick, what's your thought on David Corenswet as Clark Kent Superman?
Yeah, I like the pick actually. Now granted, I am a fan of his work, so like I've seen, him acting, and I think he's good. Like, is he the greatest actor in the world? No, but I mean, it's kind of fascinating too because in both of these scenarios, it's almost like the internet won because it was always like David Corenswet or bust. It felt like, as far as the Superman goes, like it was always him or somebody else that we didn't know about.
Right.
Like you said too, I completely agree with everything. He looks like Superman. He does have the look. It's for me, I'm just glad that we know. Like, I'm glad that we kind of had that vindication of, whatever the remaining side of the DCU. We have 2 more movies to come out as of this recording. That's all well and gone. Now we can kind of focus on this brand new, fresh Superman with no baggage attached. He's going to come into this role. He's going to hopefully he's ready to take it on. I would implore him not to listen to the internet.
Yes,
but maybe if you want to be finally with by all means. But it's going to come with the territory.
Yeah.
But I'm just excited to have a brand new Superman to step into the shoes. Because I think that's the most important thing. Is that I think we needed to finally know who our Superman is going to be.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It's nice to know, and now whether people like it or not, it's somebody else. It's not the guy that came before. So we can stop. I mean, they won't, but you can stop all the campaigns and all the nonsense because it's done. The Band-Aid has been pulled off, and you either get on board and are interested in this movie and want to see Superman thrive, or you bury your head in the sand and kick rocks. Basically, that's your choice. So I'm happy that it's taken care of, and there's much more to learn with David Corenswet's Superman as we go along throughout the development stages. But we also have Lois Lane, as I mentioned, Rachel Brosnahan. She is most notable for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Prime. Again, have not seen that yet. See, the difference is with that, I may tune in because I'm not as picky about. Well, I have to see him as Superman is the first thing I see him.
Mm-hmm.
But like with Lois, it's different. For whatever, I don't know why, but it is. But I've heard nothing but great things about that show, and you've told me about it. Some of the people have talked about it, and they basically said it's basically an audition for Lois Lane.
Yeah.
And we've heard by all accounts that she delivered a screen test that blew everybody away. That's all I need to know. Because that's why, at the end of the day, looks aside, somebody being 5'3", 6'4", black hair, blonde hair, red hair, none of that matters. At the end of the day, the person that delivers the best performance for any of these roles in the screen test phase should be the one that gets the role. Simple as that. And it seems like she did that. It helps that when I look at her, all I see, without even having seen her in the role or in anything, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, that's Lois. If I came from Mars and all I knew was Superman existed and Lois Lane was a thing, and somebody said, "Who's this?" and held up a picture of Rachel Brosnahan, there was no name, there was no preconceived notion attached, I'd look at it and say, Lois. Like, that's how much she already looks like the character to me. So I'm on board with this. I think this, just from the internet chatter, is an absolute win, especially the Lois, the way they're, the way people are talking about her has, quite frankly, shocked me a little bit in terms of how amped everybody that's seen her and stuff is for this casting. So Nick, what do you think about it?
Yeah, this is actually my favorite part of the two castings. This was the one that I personally wanted to pan out because immediately, once I heard that Rachel Brosnahan was in the running for Lois Lane, I was like, yes, 1,000%. As somebody that seen the marvelous Mrs. Maisel and the way that she exudes just Lois Lane charisma in that show. I mean, there's literally, like you said too, I think you said it perfectly. It's practically an audition for Lois Lane is what that show is. And, she's spunky. She's got a nice maturity to her. She's charming. She's beautiful. She's got, that, I think she has that Lois Lane mentality that I think we've been looking for. And I think why I like it too is I think she's going to actually elevate David Corenswet too, because I think,
yeah.
Corenswet, he's done some stuff, but, I think, Lois Lane is going to actually elevate the Clark Kent in the movie, which is why I like it. So I think she's actually going to benefit him more so than he's going to benefit her in the movie, which kind of harks back to that whole Margot Kidder, Christopher Reeve dynamic too, which is what I'm sure part of the dynamic they were testing for was to see how it was going to work. And look, in no disrespect to any of the other women that tested for Lois Lane, I thought a lot of them
both
were
of them
great and could have just been great, but there was always one that I thought really just looked like Lois Lane, and it was Rachel Brosnahan.
Yeah.
In no disrespect. So if you're not a fan of it, I would say you probably just wanted somebody else, and that's okay too.
So yeah, I like what you said about Brosnahan elevating Corenswet's performance. And it would be much like if you follow the Superman mythology, whether it's through books or film or TV, the character of Lois pushes Clark as a journalist, at the Daily Planet. So I think that dynamic playing out as they're acting will only help the chemistry and believability of Clark and Lois Lane. Right? So that works in it's art imitating life kind of thing, or life imitating art, whatever the hell the saying goes. So I like that aspect that you mentioned there too. And I just have to address this. Funny enough, I saw it yesterday. I think we both saw it. Some moron. And I hate to be mean, but that's the only way that I could describe this person. Said, "Oh, this is the most unattractive Lois Lane I've ever seen," or something to that effect, and posted a picture of Brosnahan where she looks fantastic.
I know.
I'm like, buddy,
if you're gonna do that, at least do one where she.
I'm like, buddy, have you been to an optometrist lately? Because if not, this is the sign that you should go. But look,
she's literally radiating in the sun.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, 100%. But I think Rachel Brosnahan is stunning.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to come right out and do it now and get it out of the way, and everybody's waiting for it, with bated breath. I feel like The Rock taking off his elbow sleeve. Rachel Brosnahan on the list.
Yeah. And also, real quick, I don't know in what day and age 32 is considered old.
Yeah, like
So for anybody talking about she's too old to play Lois Lane,
we've got a guy that's 29, going on 30 in a couple of weeks, I think, or a couple of days, or whatever it is.
Even then, she'll still be 30 by the time the
movie comes out. And she's 32. Like, they can play these characters for 10 years, which is the point.
Yeah.
This is why it happened, folks. They needed to play the character for 10 more years.
Maybe longer.
Hopefully longer. Hopefully this works. And they're playing it so that he can get old enough to be Kingdom Come Superman. That's what I want.
Yep.
This is the ideal scenario, folks. That's the goal.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So yeah, but to consider 32 old, then I'm a dinosaur because I'm going to be 40 in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Whatever. But, but I just thought that was not, to say that she is not good looking is ridiculous. And in terms of the age, again, like you said, it's a 2-year difference. And sniff, sniff, cough, cough. Amy Adams was a whopping 7, going on 8 years older than Henry Cavill. So if age is a thing for you, that should be a problem. But I suspect with this individual, judging by their Twitter page, it wasn't then, but obviously now it is. I wonder why. I'm not going to go there because we all know where. All I have to say is that. So the two castings, you and I seem to be in agreement that we're off to a fantastic start here. There are rumors and speculation. Well, it was in the Hollywood Reporter, so I won't classify it as rumor. But Alexander and Bill Skarsgård are said to be both in the running for Lex Luthor. Two brothers vying for potentially for the role of Lex Luthor. Does it matter which one gets it, Nick, at this point?
No, but probably not. I mean, both very quality actors, in my humble opinion. Yeah. Not like you really can go wrong. If I had a choice between the two of them, I would say Alexander Skarsgård fits more of the menacing, imposing Lex Luthor archetype.
Yeah.
But I can kind of see Bill Skarsgård as more. See, what the problem with I think with Bill Skarsgård is that while I think he's an incredible actor, I think he kind of can resemble Jesse Eisenberg a little too much. Granted, it might be a different portrayal. Of course, I'm sure it's going to be. It would be.
I hope it is.
I think Alexander Skarsgård kind of has more of like an imposing look to him. So I think that's why I would kind of like it too. And again, he's another person that you can put in the movie to elevate David Corenswet in the movie, which is why I like it.
And fair point. But to me, like I said, if either of those two get it,
oh yeah, it's a win.
We're good.
Yeah.
And if keep in mind, there may be an off chance that, come on, the guy that lost out on Superman,
Nicholas Hoult.
Nicholas Hoult could also circle back and test for Lex, and I wouldn't be mad if he got it, because he could then go into the process of saying, all I have to do is channel my feelings of losing out on the Superman role in my performance as Lex, and it's as natural as anything else could be. You know what I mean? So
imagine that was James Gunn's ulterior motive to begin with.
Who knows? Maybe. I mean, it could be. And the reason why I say that is
bringing you in to lose.
Yeah, the reason why I say that that's a possibility is because Cillian Murphy tested for Batman in Christopher Nolan's trilogy and then wound up being Scarecrow. So it's happened before. So don't just assume that it's going to be one of the Skarsgårds guaranteed. Sign the papers. And so let's keep an open mind there. But we'll see when they announce Lex Luthor. I have a feeling that it'll be relatively soon.
Yep.
Here. There is other speculation, Nick, regarding the costume And that speculation comes from the fact that James Gunn, if you peruse his Twitter a little bit, and go back, he has posted a lot of material regarding the Fleischer cartoons. You know, when the Blu-ray transfer came out, he posted about it, and he said how much he loved it, and you know how good it looked, and this and that, and so he also posted a picture of that iteration of Superman, but I think it was from like an early Superman comic.
Mm-hmm. The Golden Age.
Yeah, right. But of that costume, in that costume. So the sort of speculation making the rounds, even from the scoopers, are also posting those imagery. You know how they do it with they just post that one image and they say nothing, and you're left to speculate on what the hell does this mean. But so the speculation is that would be the suit, the Fleischer suit, would be the one that David Corenswet wears in Legacy. I think that's fantastic if that's the case. It doesn't have to be that. Like, I'm not married to that. Okay, now that somebody put it out there, it has to be that. That's not what I'm saying. But if it is that, I'm absolutely fine with it because two things. We've seen that it can look good in live action thanks to Superman and Lois and Tyler Hoechlin.
Yep.
And two, going with that particular costume, without question, differentiates it from every other Superman that came before.
Yep.
So I'm absolutely on board with it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually think the last part too is probably like the main takeaway too, right? Is that it would differentiate itself from obviously like a Henry Cavill ripoff or anything that's came like that too. I actually like it in the sense too that it kind of really does go back to basics in the form too. Is that while the movie may take cues from like an all-star Superman that James Gunn's also really been fond of. I like the idea of that, it kind of would make sense why Rachel Brosnahan was cast, because she kind of, to me, kind of feels like that Max Fleischer Lois Lane a little bit too. Corenswet kind of has that classic Clark Kent Superman look to him too, so it can kind of go both ways, where you can start off in like the Max Fleischer era and then work your way into this more modern, realistic setting. But why I think it could be fascinating, I want to get your take on this too, is even if it's just like he starts off in the suit, like like maybe Martha makes him the suit, and which is a scene that I can't believe we haven't seen in live action. It's like he gets the handmade suit, he starts off with it for a little while, and why it could be cool is I think we can earn as an audience seeing the iconic Superman traditional suit again. So let him start off in the Fleischer suit, and then like by the end of the movie, maybe he upgrades into the Superman suit. So and I'm saying, like, in a way, it's like rewarding the audience, and that now he's in the iconic, traditional red and blue with the red and yellow emblem. So I think that's what I think you can pull it off in that regards too. Or if it is just a Fleischer shoot the whole way through, that could be really fascinating too. And I think we can definitely accept that as well.
That could certainly, your theory could certainly work, or it could certainly work. Like, look, that's the suit. And this isn't, the Batman of the 80s and 90s where every movie we had to have 5 suits because I got to sell 45,000 toys. So, but either way works for me. But I just think.
Just excited to see what it looks like too.
Yeah, I'm just whatever. Yeah, it's like we're in that stage again where oh my God, we're getting a new suit, and once that's revealed, then we're gonna have 45 think pieces on different websites about, well, if the trunks aren't 100% visible, are there trunks? Is there an S on the back of the cape? Is there this? Is there that? We're going to get one image, and then we'll record, and I include you and I in this, probably a 2-hour episode about, is there an S? Is there anything? Is there this? What color is this? What color? So it's just, that's part of the fun of this stuff. Like, again, the thing with all this news, that we're this news, the speculation, it's just at least from the camp that I'm in, where it's like, whether it's what happened before or it's new, just give me more Superman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a place where this is exciting.
Yeah.
This is
The
what a new
Batman all over again. Yeah.
this is what a new movie based on one of your all-time favorite characters should elicit. These are the kind of emotions you should be feeling. And I told you, off air on the hellscape that is Twitter, because God knows what that numbskull that owns it is doing now. I told you that everybody knows I love Batman. Like he was of the two characters, Batman and Superman. He was the first one I saw, and I love him, dearly and all that jazz, and but there's something about the potential of a new Superman and a potentially new Superman that can finally be a 4-quadrant movie that appeals to mass audiences.
Yeah.
That just has me more excited than I've been about anything in a long time.
Mm.
Like, you're right. The last time I was this hyped was probably when Matt Reeves was announced as directing the Batman.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it was. So, so I don't think I missed any of the news or the speculation, right? I think we covered it all.
Yeah, no, I think the only key
Something?
part that might have been in the Hollywood Reporter article, which I think something that we've known about for a little bit too, is that it might be an introduction to the Authority.
Right.
And there might be some other DC heroes in the movie because I guess it's in an established world, so there's going to be heroes already there. So
yeah,
an origin story. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm okay. Look, I know everybody's worried about it because I've seen the concern. Oh, there's too many characters.
Yeah.
Well, that's assuming that he's gonna introduce the entire Authority.
I don't think that's.
I think it'll be like 1, 2, maybe 3 characters at most.
Yeah.
But this is, if you're gonna do a shared universe and you're gonna build it properly, you have to pepper in a couple of characters from outside of the Superman mythos. Mm-hmm. See, the issue with the way and again, I'm not going to rag on any particular filmmaker, that's not what this is. But the issue with the way the last DC shared universe, the DCEU, was constructed, was it was an afterthought. It was, Man of Steel did well, but not well enough to our expectations. So put Batman in it. And put Wonder Woman, and find a way to introduce Aquaman and Flash and Cyborg and whoever else was in one of those clips on Bruce's computer. That's the issue. The issue that it started as an afterthought. And if you go back and listen to the interviews of Goyer and Snyder, they talked about, before we do anything else regarding any of the characters, we want to make at least 1 or 2 more solo Superman movies, which is that's the way they wanted to go. They should have done, but it's all too little, too late now. But if you're going to build a shared universe, you have to do it from inception. It can't be an afterthought. Right.
Agreed.
So I'm A-okay with the inclusion of a couple of Authority characters. I'd love it if Bruce Wayne showed up. He's not going to, because Gunn said it's going to be a little while before we cast.
Which is probably the right choice.
My guess, it'll probably happen after, as the Batman is releasing in theaters, is probably when we'll start hearing who the Brave and the Bold Batman is. Great. It's just my guess. Nobody told me anything, because who the hell gives me inside information? Nobody. But I'm okay with the idea of peppering in some DC characters here and there, and as long as it's primarily a Superman movie first and foremost, that's okay by me if they pepper in some DC characters that aren't exclusive to the Superman world. Anything else you want to add before we take our break?
Yeah, no, I would just like to reiterate that, you said it multiple times, so, it's just an exciting time to finally have our Superman and Lois. Now we can kind of get excited. Now we can kind of envision what it's going to look like too, which is also really exciting. And look, you said it too, a Superman movie should always make you feel good. And I know DC, the shared universe aspect of it is such a rough spot right now. My only hope is that this year-long break kind of gives like the audience a reset that it desperately needs.
Yeah.
And by 2025, we're ready to have this lighthearted, fun, hopeful Superman movie, and we're ready to kind of do this all the right way. So that's what my hope is.
I mean, at the end of the day, look, that's going to be the responsibility of the marketing teams to instill that this is different than what came before.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, all James Gunn can focus himself on is making the best possible Superman movie he is physically, mentally, and emotionally capable of doing. And I have every faith in the world that he's going to. That's his intention. So let the man work, and in the meantime, let's enjoy, whatever's left of the vestiges of the DCEU of old, and let's enjoy the year where we get Joker 2 and the Penguin series.
Hopefully.
And I think general audiences will too, because it's the Joker 2 and related to the Batman. So I think that'll be a nice palate cleanser for them. And then, along the way, we're going to hear stuff, and then we're going to cover it right here. So stay tuned, because we're going to take a break. And then after the break, we're going to talk about the much talked about Supergirl story. Now it's in graphic novel form. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back. And as promised, we are going to the world of comic books. Specifically, I think this was a black label book, right, Nick?
At the time, yes.
It was an 8-issue limited series. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, written by Tom King. The artist, what is the name of the artist?
Bleekus Evely.
Yeah,
I
think
butchering that. I apologize, but yeah.
That's the way I would pronounce it too. So it is. Hopefully we did a semi decent job of that. And then with the announcement of the DC Universe movie slate, seeing that was on it, and how James Gunn said they were going to adapt this particular story, I said, wow, it's time for me to read it. But Nick, what's your relationship with this book in terms of when it was coming out? Did you read it? Did you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so initially at the time, I was reading this because I was actually reviewing it. Okay. And I had started off with one issue, maybe two, and it actually didn't hook me right away. So I didn't really finish the story while it was still coming out. So it wasn't until it got released in graphic novel form that I bought it, thanks to the DCU slate announcement, and then thankfully I was able to get one before it sold out, which is cool. So I got the trade paperback, the graphic novel form, and I did a binge of it. And then I suddenly had a 180 on this, to the point where I just think that now it's one of the greatest pieces of literature I ever read. But at the time, I didn't think that, just because, it was Tom King. He has a very distinct style and flavor. It wasn't really a Supergirl story that I was 1000% into, at least at that time. Like, it just felt so different, but I got what they were going for. It just, Tom King, you got to earn that, story by the end of it, right? So he went for that slow build with it. But yeah, so at the time it didn't work for me, but then I kind of did a reread of it. I binged the whole thing, and I love this book. Like, it's really one of my favorite pieces of literature that I think I've read in the past few years. So I'm actually glad that we're revisiting it now.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, no, for me, again, Tom King is starting to win me over. I mean, I love Batman Catwoman. I was really impressed with this. And what I've discovered about Tom King's work is that it's best read when the story is finished as a whole, at least from my perspective.
Yep.
It's more of a bingeable thing than wait for the monthly, and it's so even if you are getting a monthly, my suggestion is like whatever he's doing next, just let it come out, like buy the issues, but then wait till it's done and then read them all in one sitting, because that's what I plan on doing. But yeah, I was really impressed with this. Before we go into it, just give us a brief synopsis, and then we'll get more into our thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this story, obviously it's like an alien. It's a space adventure, So it takes place kind of like on this alien world, where this alien girl Ruth actually witnesses her father being murdered, on her home world. So we kind of flash forward to the essentially arc of the story is that Supergirl is visiting this planet with the red sun because she's celebrating her 21st birthday. So she wanted to go to a planet and kind of just not deal with being Supergirl for a little bit,
Right.
kind of just celebrate, her 21st birthday. So this is kind of a Supergirl that's been through the ringer for quite some time. She's not a teenage Supergirl. So the story kind of follows along where Ruth, that's the character, tries to offer Supergirl to exact revenge on the person that killed her father. And then kind of go through this, like, it kind of feels almost like Star Wars in a sense, where we're jumping from planet to planet, trying to find this character named Krem, who was the person that killed Ruth's father. And it's kind of like this deep, dark, methodical, complex kind of, philosophy of whether or not Supergirl should actually let Ruth kill the man or whether she should stop him. So it's really, really fascinating. But yeah, that's kind of the essential essence of the story.
Yeah. So one of the first of all, one of the things I want to say that I found interesting was that we're getting the story from the perspective of Ruth. Like she's narrating this, like because in the context of the story, she's written a book, and we're now reading this telling of her book from her perspective. And so, there are cases where there's dialogue that says where she's talking to the reader, which is us. So it's very meta in that sense that you're reading a book that is a book sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's like it's got that weird angle going. That's very interesting. And then the other thing is that you're right. The whole space adventure, space odyssey aspect of it. There's a bit of Star Wars, certainly. There's a bit of John Carter of Mars. I don't know if you know, like that mythology. There's a bit of that.
Yeah.
I got some not the humor, but just the look of the aliens and the things of that nature. But some Guardians of the Galaxy vibe, the weird alien. So
I wonder why James Gunn picked this now.
I wonder why he likes that story. Yeah. So it does have that space odyssey, space adventure. It's not your typical Supergirl story where she's, fighting Livewire, Brainiac, etc., etc., etc. It really is like you don't hear about Metropolis much at all, or whatever city she inhabited in the show, National City, I think it was. Yeah. Whatever you didn't hear about any of that. And the interesting thing is the whole process of like throughout the 8 issues of Supergirl going from no, I'm not going to do this for you, and you shouldn't kill him either, to being worn down by an incident that we're led to believe happened, which is, they make it look like Krypton was shot and is on death's door. And so they make it seem like that's what convinces Supergirl that, okay, now this guy needs to die. Forget about the girl story of he killed my father. Will you kill him for me? it's Krypton getting shot and being on borderline, death's door. That I've got to find a cure for him. He's the only one who has that cure, so I'm going to find the cure and then kill him. To going through the whole story, only for it to turn back around and Supergirl's actions being purposely done, and these little things along the way that when Ruth has the moment to actually, behead Krem, she stops because of all the lessons she learned from Supergirl along the way. So it was and Supergirl reveals that it was like reverse psychology. Like, I brought you along under the auspices that I was going to let you do this, hoping to teach you the lessons that would make you not want to do this along the way. So it's very much what I liked about that was it threw me for a loop, because I was going along with each twist and turns. Like, okay, she's not going to kill him. Oh, damn, like they might actually show Supergirl killing him. To then, oh no, that was a cool, interesting twist. So it took me through the ringer, but it also gets Supergirl to do what her cousin does.
Right.
And that's lead by example. So it shows a maturity to Supergirl that we sometimes don't see, because she's portrayed as this angry teenager with vengeance on her mind. Not Robert Pattinson's Batman, but actual vengeance. So that was the cool, development of the story, like throughout the course of the story, like the twists and turns and the journey that Supergirl and Ruth are taking, but we're right in there with her, right? Like, we're almost thrust into like a POV, like we're in there. Like, at least when you're reading it, I felt so immersed that I was part of the story, just reading it. So, what are some of your thoughts speaking to that?
Yeah, no, I the fascinating part about the book for me was just how battle tested Supergirl was throughout this whole book too, right? Like, again, she starts off, on a planet under a red sun, right? So it's essentially she's depowered essentially for more or less half this book, and obviously when she gets her powers back, it's like she's still not 100%. Like half the time she's healing in this book too, like she's needing to get at full strength. So really, you're right. It's kind of falling on, the humanity of Supergirl, which is kind of an aspect of the book that I think gets overlooked, right? Because if you're a reader, you want to see Supergirl being Supergirl, right? You don't want to see like that philosophical journey of, well, while she's not being Supergirl, she's actually making this person around her who just has vengeance on her mind better.
Yeah.
Right. So in a way, I kind of like what you said too, of that it's the humanity of who Supergirl is on full display. And it's kind of like in your face the whole time. You just have to look for it. And then you're kind of looking for Supergirl to like be Supergirl in this book, which she does several times in this book. But I personally like that it truly felt like a hero's journey, because we are led to believe that when Supergirl came to this planet, she just needed a break. She kind of was tired of, she just wanted to take a little bit of a break. But, then she knew she needed to get back. She even said it right before Krem initially attacked them. I got to get back to being Supergirl. This was fun. I took a break for a while. So I personally just like that the whole book just felt like a hero's journey to allowing Supergirl to see herself again. And that's what I think was fascinating.
Yeah, and you talk about her being put through the ringer. Like, you couldn't be more bang on about that. Like, there's where Krem when they start catching up to Krem, and he uses magic to like teleport her to a planet with a kryptonite sort of laced sun.
Yeah.
Which almost like has Supergirl near death at one point.
Yeah.
And she barely survives that. And then has to fight this dinosaur-like alien creature when the sun finally goes down. So we see in that chapter, we see a Supergirl that's delirious for most of the time, and that's when Ruth has to step up and kind of be this young hero and protecting Supergirl. So the roles are reversed. Um, we see Supergirl have to put up with bigotry, not of herself, but of a whole group of people, because essentially, in this case, the color of their skin. Like the one planet that they go to, it's all blue people, right, or blue aliens, and it's a town that used to be inhabited by purple uh, inhabitants. They've all disappeared, and we come to find that they were sacrificed, right, to Krem,
yeah,
by the blue race, but also prior to that they were subjugated to segregation. So you're dealing with that aspect of it. Then you're going to the scenario where she has to face down all by herself Krem's pirate crew of people, and she's getting again battered and bloodied. Like at one point, she's chained up and being just ravaged, right, assaulted. Uh, so we do see her go through physical trials in to a degree that I don't think I've ever seen Supergirl have to endure before, at least from the books that I've read. Um, so that was fascinating to watch play out. Um, and but also, so we see the physical toll that Supergirl goes through in this book, but there's also the emotional toll, and there's two instances where that's specifically keyed on, and that is when they go to the planet with the records to like visualize what Krem has done. And she purposely doesn't allow Ruth to watch the video, the footage, because she's like, it's going to be too hard on you. So Supergirl goes into this room, this building, where we assume she's spending time watching the footage. And when she comes out, like she's shell shocked, like she's stunned. In terms of to the depths of I guess Krem's depravity, disturbingness, his viciousness, his ruthlessness. So you see that, and then there's the chapter where Ruth tells of Supergirl telling her about her time on Krypton and her origin story. And I like the way that we got that 3/4 of the way through the book, and not right at the start of that book, like your typical origin, lands on Earth, meets Superman, either talks to Superman or has a disagreement with Superman,
right.
goes off on her own, does her thing, and then comes back and hugs Superman. Hey, cuz, what's going on?
Yeah.
So I like that it was a different aspect of it. And in this one, they keyed in on her having to watch her mother die and gradually having to watch thousands of citizens from Argo City over what I would assume is weeks, months, and years die because of the radiation from Krypton's destruction that has now broken through the barrier that Zor-El created to keep the people of Argo City safe. Well, the radiation is breaking through and slowly killing them all. And so that's the impetus that, forces Zor-El to use Jor-El's plans of, Kal-El's ship to at least send his daughter away, right? So you got to admit, you got to think, imagine being Kara and having to watch your people, let alone your mother to start, but everybody else around you slowly die. What is it like? Imagine what toll that takes on her, and that kind of gives you a sense of the typical Supergirl we get, where she's angry and vengeful when she first lands. Now you know why. Now you can understand. I get it. Like, because if you just think, Krypton exploded, and they don't show much more than that, you can understand why a character would be sad and depressed. But when you see the nuance of, okay, yes, that happened, they got a reprieve on life, but then they got screwed over anyway, and you see that slowly happen, that just adds so much weight to the whole thing for me. So what did you think of that chapter? That one struck me the most, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're right too. It kind of comes at the right time in the story too, because it kind of serves as like this emotional anchor of that. It's like this lesson learned, right? Where it's no matter how hard, hardship may get to you, it kind of defines who you are, right? It's almost
Right.
like the Flash, right? It's like your scars aren't meant to heal, right? They make you who you are, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like that line in the Flash. So I like that it kind of served as like this lesson for Ruth that hey, we all go through something in life. I saw my whole planet get destroyed, but in the end, I choose to live life, and to see the best parts of the world. So I think
Right.
it's always just trying to teach somebody else to be better for Supergirl, which is why I think it's so beautiful. But yeah, I mean, like in terms of like the art and the vivid imagery of it all, I mean, like it's outstanding, and like it really does hit you like when you're reading that.
Yeah. And the what I got to give Tom King a lot of credit for this, especially, and that is he found a way to make Comet the Super Horse
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
Like when he showed up, I'm like, oh, he's going here. Like, we're getting a super horse.
mm-hmm.
How's that gonna work? But I was sold, and man, did I end up loving that horse. Not
Yep.
only that, but then they give you a backstory on him, and there's this whole, he was once a man or some shenanigans that I'm still not 100% clear on, but like it's like this sort of reincarnation idea, right? Or
Yep.
some, because they don't really explain it, right? She
Mm-hmm.
just said he was once a man, and he sacrificed in the end. Comet sacrifices himself to save Supergirl, and that, like in the chapter that I mentioned, where she's getting, destroyed by the army of Krem's pirates.
Yep.
He comes in, and ultimately sacrifices himself. But again, to make Comet work
Mm-hmm.
is
So
impressive to me,
cool. So
because
cool.
normally I'd look at look, Crypto. I can I can suspend disbelief for a dog that can fly
Yeah.
and shoot lasers at it. With a dog, I can kind of buy it. Once you start introducing cats and horses and rats and squirrels and any number of animal, that's where the more animals you introduce that can do that stuff, the more my suspension of disbelief disappears. But he somehow made it work, and it's much like James Gunn made me give a shit about a raccoon and a talking tree. Tom King made me care about a super horse. So I got
Wow. Well said.
it's no wonder that Tom King is in the writers' room of the
Yeah.
DCU for James Gunn.
As you should be.
Yeah, and so I got to give him credit for that. You talked about the art, and what I find interesting about the art is that it can juggle between these weird looking, like totally out there alien creatures, but then when it needs to have that classic superhero splash page of like Supergirl engulfed in a yellow sun, and like she's got like it's like a bit. There was one scene where she took this space drug
Yeah.
that would amplify her abilities
Yep.
or whatever she needed, and she needed a solar power up, so she takes this drug. and like she's surrounded by the sun, like she
embracing her inner Dark Phoenix.
right. It's but it's like she's got a solar shield engulfing
Yeah.
her,
Yeah.
and the splash page was just like beautiful superheroics at their best, and so the fact that the book could alternate between something like John Carter of Mars and all the crazy aliens, and then your classic superhero Superman Supergirl story
Mhm.
is a testament to the artist who did a fantastic job. Um, um, and then also in the moments on Argo where it's more dire and the city's hanging on by a thread and so you get more bleak color tones and imagery and facial expressions. Uh, just such variety from the art and the color, and so kudos to the colorist as well.
Mhm.
Did a fantastic job. Then you get the final showdown between first Ruth and then Ruth and Supergirl. Well, not the final, but based for lack of a better word, the
Mhm.
final stairdown. That felt like a western. It felt like I was watching, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or some, western
Yeah.
show. So just a wide range of situations and styles in this book, and it's all embodied in one artist, and a colorist and all that jazz. What did you think about that? What stood
Mhm.
out in the art for you?
Yeah, no, I think the final showdown is actually it's earned too, first and foremost too, because I think it's the art of it all is so interesting too, because I love the part of like when they catch him. It's
Yeah,
almost like like when they catch the villain, he's all tied up. They want to make sure that he can't escape because they got plans for him,
yeah,
right? Like they want to make sure he doesn't hurt anybody else, right? It kind of reminded me of like that trope of like when they do catch the villain and the villain is like messing with them because like they know that they're ultimately gonna get away, right? So it's like you kind of have Krem kind of like messing with Ruth a little bit, like why don't you just like put me out of my misery, like like why don't you just go ahead and just do it, like
yeah,
I'm all tied up, I'm defenseless, like why don't you take that sword over there and just chop my head off, like just go ahead and do it while you're at it. I mean, Supergirl won't mind, right? Like it's almost like he felt like the Joker in a sense too, right? Where he's just
I was gonna say that.
right,
What?
like he's like instigating her. It's almost like just go ahead and do it. She won't mind.
Yeah,
Um, so then, like, when we get to the realization of like when crime breaks out, then it's like, okay, well, now it's Supergirl versus crime. So, like, now what's gonna happen? Right? Like, is Supergirl gonna actually do what Ruth essentially wanted to hire
yeah,
her to
because Ruth
do?
could do it. Ruth couldn't do it.
Ruth
Like,
couldn't
She
do it,
she
right?
had she had the sword and was gonna swipe down at his neck, but
Mhm.
she couldn't pull the trigger. So then Supergirl grabs the sword,
Yeah, and it's like
and
that
then
thing, right? It's like the villain, if the villain is gonna kill again, it's like it's that moral complexity of like, well, do you let the villain walk away?
yeah, yeah,
Do you throw them in a jail for them to potentially break out and
yeah.
kill somebody again down the line, or do you just do it, right? Which is kind of like the thing why everybody hated Man of Steel to begin with, but we're not going down that rabbit hole.
Well, that's why I was. That's it's funny
Exactly.
because I'm
That's
like,
what I
wait a
thought.
minute now. If she did, like, I don't know, like when she was in position to do it, like as I'm reading, I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
if they do this, before I read any further, I don't know if this is going to change the nature of the book for me
Right, nature of the
because
character.
because I didn't like when Man of Steel did it.
Right.
So how am I going to feel when Supergirl does it?
Hmm.
Um,
And it just happens too, which is like it actually shocked me too when I read it. Like initially, like I was like, whoa, like they just flat out did it. I don't know how you felt about that, but I
well,
was
no,
like
but
shocked.
before when Ruth finally stops her,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right, and says, "I learned the lesson," like because that's when Supergirl took the sword away. That's what she tells her. I did all this in the hopes that this would be your realization that you wouldn't be able to do it.
Hmm.
So then when Supergirl goes, but I'll do it for you, and then Ruth stops and says, no, you taught me well. Like this is not the way to go about this. and they ultimately put him in the Phantom Zone. And then decades later, when Ruth is an old woman, Supergirl and Krypto come back, and they release him.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, the fact that they put him in the Phantom Zone, I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, right. I was like, thank you.
That's a great. That's what Superman should have done back in 2013. But I'm not going to go there because
It does exist.
I've exhausted that nobody listens when I say that. But I digress. But so I was excited about that. The only thing that I'm ultimately they let him out, and he's all repentant. Oh, I changed it. He's all happy. He's all apologetic. And then the sucker gets his head lopped off. But it was my impression that Ruth did it.
Mm.
Was that your impression as well?
Yeah, I had, because they kind of do it. They like foreshadow it in a sense where like it's this like assassin for hire essentially, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like it's kind of like in a shadowy kind of way, done in a shadowy way, where you're like, well, maybe Ruth just still had vengeance on her mind even all these years. I mean, pain never goes away.
Yeah.
I mean,
especially
so
that kind of pain. Imagine.
especially that kind of pain. So I don't know. Maybe it could have been the anniversary of her father's death.
Yeah.
And she came back and she's like, you know what? I'm still not over this.
But
yeah.
I think you know what I think why I'm okay with it is that Ruth ultimately does it.
Right.
So there's that. The other thing is what I think Supergirl's ultimate goal was you're too young at that
There's always
stage
another way. Yeah.
to make that decision.
Right.
Grow, live your life, and then I'll come back. And if you still want to do it when you're old enough to make that decision and you've lived your life, then I'll let you do what you feel you need to do. Because if she had just let Ruth do it then or did it for her, I think a moment like that would have scarred that kid forever.
And she's no different than the villains that Supergirl
and
fights.
she wouldn't have been able to live a normal life after doing something like that.
Right.
This way, she's into her. I don't know how old she is, but she looks quite old and frail. So
Right.
at this point, she's lived a life. She's done what she's going to do. Now, how are you feeling? And they gave him a chance. They brought him out. My thing was, even though he was repentant, something in me was like, I don't know. I don't buy it from you, sir. Like, I don't buy your bullshit.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I was okay with it. Ultimately, because Supergirl wasn't the one that swung the sword. At least the way I took it. And she did all this to give Ruth time to live her life and make the decision at an age where it wouldn't destroy her. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it also echoes something that I think Supergirl said. That one of the reasons why the villains hate why people get angry with Cal so much is because he's able to convince them. He's able to talk them out of things and preach to them. And that's not like it is her, but it's not her at the same time.
Right.
So I just took it as she gave her enough time to make the decision at an age where she was well informed and had lived a life first before making a decision. So I ultimately fell on the side of being okay with it.
Yeah.
Had Supergirl swung the sword on that beach setting earlier in the book, I don't know if I would have been okay with it. But like this, I was okay with it.
It's probably a different story if that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I just love too that it's at the core of this story, it's a story of hope and despair, but it really is just a story of hope all along.
Yeah.
Right. Like Supergirl never stops being Supergirl.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's this ongoing lesson of like it was a lesson being learned the whole time. We just had to kind of be along for the lesson.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the part that I love the most too, is that, it's Supergirl never went against her own morals, and neither did Ruth in a sense too.
Yeah.
It was always, I want vengeance, but is it the right thing to do? Right. And it's that, it's that shield, it's that S crest that, hope is there for you. It's whether or not you choose to believe in it or not that's going to ultimately make you who you are.
Yeah.
So that's what I loved about it.
And I'm glad that my concern was throughout the course of the book was like, wait a minute, is Krypto going to survive? And then
Right.
look, I don't hate them, but I'm not like a super like dog lover. Like I'm not,
Yeah.
like they exist, they're cool, but I'm not, I don't have one anymore. I did, but but it's not like I'm devoted to them. So it's like, but I was so invested in. But is Krypto okay? And then when I saw him in the future setting there,
it's like Guardian. It's like Guardians, right? With
oh my God, Krypto's okay, right?
Cosmos. It's like, come on, call me a good dog. I'm a good dog.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's such a James Gunn thing. Absolutely.
But I found myself waiting for it. Okay, but I need to know, is Krypto okay? And then they showed him at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's still very hopeful. At the end of the day, you feel the despair of the characters, but at the end of the day, they leave you with positivity and hopeful. And you know what? At the end of the day, Krem deserved it.
That he did.
Like I think, and this is saying something, I think he's more of a prick than Zod was in Man of Steel. Because Zod had the motivation of, hey, listen, I'm just trying to preserve our people.
Mm-hmm.
His motive, his the way he went about it was all kinds of wrong. But this Krem guy was just,
yeah,
I'm a murderer and I have fun doing it.
Yeah.
Like I do it for fun. There's no like I'm not trying to save my own planet. I'm doing it for it brings me joy. So there was an extra level of this guy's a jackass and a jerk, and you want to see him get his, and he does.
It's that medieval villain. You just love to hate him.
But it ends so nicely for both Supergirl and Ruth.
Yeah.
And there is a sense of hope and uplifting to it, especially when the book talks about Supergirl being an eternal example for women feeling sorrow and depression and this and that. All that stuff. It makes it a feel good ending. So I really think the book stuck the landing, and was just such a great read.
Yeah.
An experience to go through. But
awesome.
Anything else you want to mention, or we can go ahead and rate it?
Yeah, no, I think the other striking part about this book too is that I understand why this is what the template is for the Supergirl solo film.
Right.
And I actually really, really like it too now that I've kind of read it. Whether or not it's going to actually be a full-on adaptation, I'd imagine it's going to be close to it, especially with Tom King being in there.
I think it'll be very close.
But it is a great introduction to knowing who Supergirl is.
Because it gives you the origin.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
It gives you the origin, even though it's later in the film.
Right.
But if it's a different spin on it, so I won't just be regurgitating what we know. The only other thing is, I wonder if they include like maybe 15 to 20 minutes prior to the events of the book kicking off in the movie, where she interacts with Kal-El / Superman.
Could do that.
To hook the audience. Instead of her just saying off screen, hey, I left because I needed a break. Like, show her talking.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool if we saw her talking to her cousin saying, look, I just need to get away for a bit. You've got this handled, whatever.
Well, you should correct Superman not being in that first Supergirl movie, so you should probably right the wrong. Is this now that you've actually seen the Flash too? Is this can you see Sasha Calle kind of being in this type of movie, or do you think like they would go a different route?
This kind of Supergirl, I think she could pull off 100%.
Okay.
The cool thing is, and I don't know, I typically don't put the word of gospel into the mouths of the scoopers.
Yeah.
But Casey Walsh on Twitter is fairly reliable, and he said that he would expect that Sasha Calle to be back, and I hope that's the case. Here's why. She was great in the limited time that she was on screen. She did 99% of the marketing for that.
I know, she really did.
For them, like she carried the weight when obviously the star of the film, for various reasons, could not. Neither could Michael Keaton. Neither could right. It was just. It seemed like it was Sasha, Andy, and Barbara, and they carried the load of this movie. It should, the disappointment of the Flash film at the box office should not be saddled onto Sasha Calle or even Andy Muschietti and Barbara, his sister. That's why I think they gave Andy Brave and the Bold before the Flash came out, and that's why I think there is a chance, and according to Casey Walsh, a strong chance that Sasha Calle will return because
just change the suit and she works. Yeah,
she did everything asked. And the other thing is this: let's not forget they went through 425 actresses.
Yeah,
she beat out every single one. James Gunn just went through hundreds, who knows how many auditions, maybe thousands even, audition tapes. And finally, after a months-long search, found his Superman and Lois. Do you think he's going to want to do that again for Supergirl when he's got one right there?
Yeah.
Like, all you need to do is, first of all, we know the multiverse exists.
Right.
The 45 people, us included, that actually paid to watch The Flash. No, and I love the movie.
Yeah. I get you.
But I'm just making a joke. But the 45 of us that watched the movie and paid for it know that we're still living in a multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
So another version that looks like, somewhat like, mostly like the version from The Flash is completely plausible. And all you have to, in my opinion, if you want to make her look different, make her grow out her hair long, dye those locks of hair blonde, and alter the suit a little bit. And
right, yeah, I think she should be in the blue suit. That's my only one thing is I think she needs to be in what the actual.
Put her in the comic accurate suit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you're fine. And like I said, blonde. Yeah. So I hope she gets the chance. Ultimately, if Gunn feels they need to go another way, I understand that too. Exactly. I'm not gonna. You better cast her, or I'm not gonna watch this movie.
Cancel the DCU.
Yeah, like I don't. I'd like her to return, but ultimately, if they give me a new one, I'll welcome her with open arms. But I think Sasha can do it, and if all things considered, if James Gunn says, "Hey, what would you do?" If you ask me, James, I'm only one DM away. Feel free to ask on the hellscape that is Twitter. Or if you want to send me an invite to Blue Sky, because apparently you need an invite for that, send me an invite. But if you're asking me, all things considered, just give Sasha another go.
Agreed.
That would be my takeaway. But again, that all depends. I think what is key for the DC universe going forward with casting is that the director in play should have a say in the casting process.
I agree with that.
So Andy Muschietti should be in the room with James Gunn when they're casting the next Batman. Whoever directs Supergirl should be consulted. They're like, we have Sasha. We can have her come in and test again for you.
Right.
To see if you want to use her.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they should first get the director on board and then talk about it. But I think the directors should be involved in the process. Mm-hmm. It can't just be, hey, here's your Batman, here's your Aquaman, here's your Wonder Woman, here's your Flash, and you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Which was part of the problem of the last iteration of the DC shared universe. So I'd like Sasha to continue, but if she doesn't, it's not a deal breaker for me. That's what I'll say.
That's fair.
I'm in her corner, though.
Yeah.
And I know that you are.
And you better be at. I'm just kidding. All right, yeah. All right.
That hot toy looked like shit.
New co-host. Adam doesn't want
That
to.
looks
That's it.
even you. Come on.
That's it.
That hot tub looks terrible.
Oh
That
yeah.
sideshow. Oh, come on.
That is
that's
not
her.
Supergirl. That is not Supergirl.
That's a miscarriage of justice. That is.
Yeah. Yikes.
I'll
Yikes.
tell you. But you and your multiverse wife should complain about that.
We want our money
I don't know.
back.
Likeness infringement, gimmick infringement. What would you sue for that? I don't know, but something's gonna give there.
A lot of
But
money.
yeah. So yeah, no. Love the book.
Nice.
I'm excited to see what shape the movie takes in relation to how much of the book they adapt and how faithful they are to it. But I think we can go ahead and rate it now. So
Yeah.
remember, for comics, we do 5 for the story and 5 for the art. So what would you give?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this one pretty simple because I'm at a 5 for both story and art. I think this book is phenomenal, and if you haven't read it, definitely go check it out. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give it for the story a 4.5 out of 5. It's almost a 5. The only reason I took a half a point off was I could see how this would be a slow burn for people.
Sure.
And it would take time. And, while it does have the familiar superheroics, it's not that straightforward superhero comic. So if you're just looking for that, it may be a little bit of a grind for you. But once I let it play and let it develop, I was surprised by the twists and turns.
Mm-hmm.
The character development and motivations were great, and so yeah, it's a 4.5 for me for story. The art is a 5, just because, like I said, there's so much variety from the one artist. From really sci-fi to really superheroic. It was just stunningly beautiful to look at. So it gets a 5 for me. So Tom King is on a roll with me the last couple books. So keep it up, Tom. But yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, that's Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. You're gonna see I venture over the next, what do we got, a year and a half before Superman Legacy?
Yeah, about
Good
so.
Lord, that feels like forever.
I know.
But I will tell you that over the next year and a half, there are going to be a lot of episodes with me and Zeddy here talking about all things Superman. So stay tuned. And in the meantime, if you want to share your thoughts about anything Superman or Supergirl related with Zeddy or I, you can on social media. Nick, where do they track you down?
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Nick Zennick. I do have a podcast. It is called The Vigilante 1939. We have new episodes coming out every week, sometimes bi-weekly. It's a DC, Marvel, Star Wars, pop culture related podcast, so go give that a listen. You can find that anywhere you get your podcast at. It is Independence Day here in the United States, so I do want to, of course, wish all my fellow American friends here a very happy 4th of July. I'm feeling rather patriotic, especially more so now that we have talked both Superman and Supergirl. So a very happy holidays to everybody celebrating, and to you as well, Adam.
Happy 4th to our American friends and listeners as well, and happy Canada Day to my fellow Canadians that just passed the other day. By the time you hear this, they'll be a week later, but the sentiment is the same.
Exactly.
And we hope you're enjoying, on both sides of the border, a happy, safe, and festive holiday. But if you want to talk to me about Superman, Supergirl, Batman, the exponential amount of multiverse wives that I have, you can on social media at Adam_LeafsFan on Twitter. The podcast network has its own Twitter page at MMNPDC. We have the Facebook group, which is, the link is in the description below. Click that and I will add you and we can continue the conversation there. But until next time, Supergirl, the Woman of Tomorrow, is forever. From the first time she almost kills Cram but doesn't, to the last. So long, everybody.